for the late start. This is a presentation that I prepared with a lot of help from a lot of Gapsters about best practices we have developed for working with distributed teams in Agile. This is a presentation that I'll be presenting next week to a conference in Austin called Keep Austin Agile. It's a pretty big conference. There's about 750 attendees, something like that. So it's a great opportunity. With the help of the marketing team, we were able to get a speaker position, and so I'm here to share it with you today, but also to practice. Yeah. So what I would ask for you as my teammates, in addition to listening and asking questions, also think if you have any recommendations or ideas that I should include to try to improve my presentation. I also invite your feedback so that I can be the best possible presenter for GAP next week. So starting obviously with the team here, everyone works in a distributed fashion in some way, whether they're developer QA teammates or remote product owner. We're all dealing with some type of remote distributed environment. So to start, we'll actually cut this a little bit short. In the presentation, I'll ask the audience to think a little bit about what are the things that scares us about being distributed, about not being face-to-face. So we'll do a short version. Take just 1 minute to sort of think about some of the challenges that make you uncomfortable with working with a distributed team.
Maybe have one.
Yes.
My name is Alexander. I think that the most important stuff about that is that you don't have. Sorry, can you?
Or I can repeat.
I'll talk to the computer.
To this.
No, this is only decoration.
Yeah. Okay, my name is Alexander, and I think that as a distributed team, something that can allow us to reach our goals is if you have the best communication. You know?
Yes.
For example, if you don't have the tools as necessary that you need for something, sometimes it could be really difficult to talk for some topics.
Yes.
So in order to avoid that, we usually use Join Me or maybe Slack or Skype or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the best thing is maybe make a call. You know,
yes.
instead of chats.
Yes.
What my idea.
Yes. Very good. Thank you.
I totally agree with that, and I would say that the actual fear is the fear of misunderstanding, right? Yeah. It's like, hey, I might say something with a specific intention in mind, but the other person might read it with a different tone than what I intended for this to be, and so misunderstandings can arise from there, and that's probably one of the biggest problems with this kind of communication, I would say, and I would also try to prioritize voice communication or video communication to avoid those problems.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, Paul, is like the timing of the communication, because sometimes if you have the person next to you, you just say, "Hey, Alexander, please help me." That's it. But if the person is in another part of the world, you have to write. You don't know if he's in the bathroom, he's in the coffee, I don't know. So the delay of the answer is
delay of answers, yes.
hard.
Yes, and finding the right time.
Yeah.
I believe in knowing what. Sorry. Yeah. For example, for recruiters, for all of us being in the same page, what are you doing? What I'm doing right now? What we are searching for? What needs we are trying to fill up today? So most of the time, it happens that I'm doing the same as Diego, for example, as Diego
Yes.
didn't tell me. Something like that.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God,
So-
I don't know how to.
Duplication or lack of coordination.
I don't know, we call it retrocesos. I don't know what to say that.
Reprocess.
Reprocess?
Redundancies in the process, I would say.
Yeah, and like a tool so everyone know what the other or someone in the team what they are doing. Right
Yes. So one of the things as I asked this question of many people, these are some of the answers that came up, and I think we heard many of those here. Feeling disconnected, limited time window, trying to find the right time, an us versus them mentality, where people are sort of like, the people I can see is us, and the people I can't see is them. These are all real fears and risks of having distributed team. If you look at these one level deeper, what you'll discover is at the heart of them are two challenges. One is communication. As Alexander pointed out, it's about communication, and the other is about trust. So it's developing trust. If you trust someone, you're not going that. If you trust someone, they are us. They're not them, right? If you have trust in the people that you're working with, there's less chance for misunderstanding. Or if there's a misunderstanding, there's less damage, right? People don't start getting scary ideas about, oh well, Felipe said this and he's a scary guy, so I'm going to assume that he really means that, he's trying to get me fired, when all it was is Felipe was giving me some constructive feedback so I could get better. But if there's not the trust there, the interpretation, the emotion goes a very different direction. So it's about building trust and having good communication. So through the presentation today, I'll talk about some of the techniques that we've developed, we found as best practices for building trust in a distributed team, and how to have efficient communication in those teams. And I think you'll find a few surprising facts here as we go through. First, I'll start with the negative, with the anti-patterns, and then we'll move more toward the positive techniques. We've seen examples. One of the things that you want to avoid that tears down, the things that tear down trust or communication, being impolite, interrupting, being a troll in a chat group where you're always being negative or spamming people to interrupt. Being impolite can cause people to shut down and erode trust as well. Creating a false sense of urgency, like if you know the story of the boy who cried wolf. If everything is an emergency, again, you don't trust eventually that it's really an emergency. It's like, yeah, it's what they say every day. So false sense of urgency is something to avoid. Micromanagement, we had an interesting story here where one of our teams, the leadership began to have some concerns about the team. The trust was sort of eroding, going away. And they instituted pair programming, but they did it in a way where the the person in one city was always monitoring and watching, and the person in the other city was always the one hands on keyboards. So instead of it being a healthy exchange of pair programming, it was, I'm watching you type and criticizing, right? So it was very one directional. So any practices that are micromanaging can erode trust. And then another anti-pattern, which often happens, especially if you're in different time zones, is misunderstanding availability. We had one team that there was a huge issue. The frustration was so high because they thought, that the people were disrespecting each other. They weren't responding in a timely way to questions. They were reaching out and getting no response. They began to even wonder, hey, is this person working? Like, do they ever show up in the office? And it turns out it was a simple misunderstanding of availability. Their time zone was about 2 hours off, and the one team tended to work a really late schedule, and the other team worked a really early schedule. And so they would Skype at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they would not get any response until the next morning. Well, that was because the team went home at 2 o'clock or 2:30, so it was right at the tail end of the day. There was never really the agreement or understanding about, okay, what times do you normally work? Oh, I normally work these days. I do a late lunch, or I stop in the middle of the day for 2 hours because I pick up my child from school and then take them somewhere. So misunderstanding of availability is one of these anti-patterns, and we'll talk about techniques to avoid falling into some of these traps. Yes, go ahead.
I want to add something that about micro.
Yes.
Trust each other in a team is quite important, because as you said before, it's something that maybe if you type someone a question or something like that, they are thinking that you are working on that, and you are not out of the office, or maybe you are not available to answer that, or maybe you answer in a unpolite way, so working as a team is a quite important step in micromanagement.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point, Alexander. Just in case you couldn't hear, he was making the point that that micromanagement is also a trust-based thing. That if you already trust the people on the other side, then questions don't come across as micromanagement. They're just questions. But if there's not a good trust developed there, then people begin to wonder, what is the motivation? Why are they asking me this question? So starting with communication, there's a continuum of communication. There was echo there. Did you have a question? I think it was echo.
Okay.
Okay. So, so someone raised this, Diego did, I think, about the richer mediums of communication, like having face-to-face communication directly is the most rich. You have language, you have body language, you have eye contact. Humans are wired to have face-to-face communication. At the other end of the spectrum would be bulk email or spam. They don't know you. They're just sort of broadcasting things in your general direction. And so there's really no connection whatsoever. And so it's a very low effectiveness medium, very low bandwidth and connection. In the middle, you have technologies like video conferencing. You have the ability to do audio communication and chat and instant messaging. I think we're all using probably all of these things, with the exception of bulk mail. That's probably not everyone in the room. But it's interesting to recognize that the more you tend toward the top of this curve, the more effective your communication can be and better to build trust. So more face-to-face is a good thing. Here may be one of the interesting, surprising facts. There was a study done at University of London where they tested the effectiveness of different communication medium. Which ones did people use most often, and which did they find most effective? It was quite interesting to see that for certain types of communication, chat, instant messaging rated higher than video conferencing in effectiveness of communication. And they did a little bit of digging into the why that would be. And it turns out that it's around the asynchronous nature, the fact that you may have something you don't need immediate response, and it doesn't require a high degree of trust. It's informational. So a Slack channel is the perfect avenue for that versus trying to reach somebody in a video conference and talk to them right now. To be able to put something out there and get the answer 1 hour later is fine. So for certain types of communication, chat rated higher than video conferencing in effectiveness. And I think as we progress in technology and more digital natives are in the workforce, we'll probably see a little bit more emphasis on chat, instant messaging versus face-to-face and video conversation. The secret is to choose the right mechanism for the right type of interaction. So our best practice when working with a distributed team is start with face-to-face. It's great, especially during the storming and forming of a team, to have that face-to-face interaction to begin to build trust very early. Have a joint kickoff planning activity. We often have ambassadors travel between locations. So if you can't get everyone in the same room, have some people that will travel between locations to spend some face time. So for us, to have a client come visit our development office in Latin America is great, to create those relationships, or to have people from our team fly to the client site to create those relationships. Doing both of those and having ambassadors that travel between is a very well demonstrated key to success for us working with distributed teams. To start face-to-face, and have a frequency of about once per quarter would be a best practice. Some teams it only happens once per year, some more frequently, but once a quarter is often enough that people begin to feel comfortable with one another, that personal connection. Also, use multiple channels. We talked earlier about there's different effectiveness. This is kind of the best practice that we've developed for which channel is right for which environment. We use video very heavily for stand-ups, for one-on-one meetings, requirement reviews, demos. We encourage everyone to have video on as often as possible to be able to have that deeper connection. For status information, notifications, finding help to questions, chat is a great technique. You can broadcast a question and anyone from the team can see it and go, okay, I can answer that one. So it's a great medium for that. We also find chat as a really great way for fun. How many of you have participate in a Slack or Skype channel that's just fun stuff, just social. Yeah. It's great. It's a really good medium for that, and you can stop and give your brain a rest and go see what's been posted lately to the Slack channel. Yesterday I posted a picture of my cat sitting on my keyboard. It's a hardworking animal. Yeah, she was working on this presentation. She did this slide right here.
Cats and keywords.
And then email, of course, is still effective. Good for a complex message that you need to broadcast. If it's more than 1 or 2 lines, then Slack doesn't work very well. So if you have a complex message, or to document an agreement, so you sort of talked about some things, had a long meeting, came to 3 conclusions. It's nice to have that as an email summary of the agreement or of the action items. It's a good channel for that.
In business, exactly. Super smart though. It's not very smart though, but it's useful.
Another important best practice is to build ownership and engagement. Some of the best ways to do that, oddly enough, is to expand outside the transaction of day-to-day user stories, development, test and QA, acceptance. That kind of communication happens all the time, but building the engagement and the ownership happens when you expand outside of that. So share with the team interesting information about marketing programs that are going on in the company, or connect them with the sales organization, give them access to input from the customer service reps. We had a really great experience recently when we were doing an ambassador travel. The team took a field trip to one of the end customers of the application that they were building. So they went and spent a half day and visited with an actual set of users of the application, and talked with them about how do they use it, what do they use it for, what are the benefits, what are they doing in the world to make the world a better place, and this software is giving them leverage to do that. So it was a very powerful message to begin to get behind, not only why am I building this software, but what are people doing with it, and to see the passion that they have for how they use that tool in their work. It's a really great way to build engagement and ownership. You can get end users involved in lighter ways. You can have them participate by giving beta feedback or participating in demos. But bringing in the outside world helps to bring engagement and connection within the team around a common goal. Any questions so far? Okay. We mentioned earlier about the communication. Camilo gave an example of mistiming, right? Not being how. I talked about the team that they didn't have their times aligned, so they were frustrated with each other. A really great way to address that is to establish rules of engagement from the very beginning. So spend some time with the team to talk about how are we going to interact with each other. What kind of response should I expect to a technical question on Slack? If I need to escalate something, if I'm stuck, who do I need to talk to? How do I do that? Do you want an email, a phone call? Should I go through a list of people, start here, then here, then here? How are we going to work with each other? What are the expectations? Establishing common work hours. When do we expect each other to always be there versus you might not be around, it's going to be after hours. So understanding what are the common work hours and expectations there. And then in the rules of engagement, consider sharing the pain associated with meeting times. We have the benefit of being in the same time zone or very close, right? Sometimes the lunchtime becomes a problem because it's you miss that middle of the day because, oh, now it's my lunchtime. No, now it's their lunchtime. Now it's somebody else's lunchtime. Okay, now we got a window.
Breakfast.
It's breakfast. But it's good that for your regular ceremonies like the daily stand-up, if you set it at a time that someone is going to have to experience some pain to be there, they're going to have to meet very early in the morning because to match your time, or late at night, or it always happens during lunch hour. Consider sharing the pain of that and rotating. Maybe for one sprint, it's going to be at 7 a.m. Eastern time.
That's what happens when you mock me so much.
Karma.
So consider sort of sharing the pain and moving things around. So maybe for this sprint, it's going to be inconvenient for me, but next sprint, it's going to be okay for me, and it's going to be inconvenient for you. So we're sort of not creating resentment, we're creating teamwork.
Maybe it should happen when you are working with India guys.
Yes.
Between Latin American people and maybe people from other continent or something.
Yeah, especially if your time zone is 7, 8, or 11 and a half hours different. Sharing the pain of meeting times can be very, very helpful for team building. Again, this should also be a living document. The teams that are doing this very well, the best practice that I've seen, they're reviewing this regularly. Probably not every retrospective, but they are reviewing their rules of engagement, because over time it changes. Like once you're 4 sprints in with a team, the little things of knowing when people are going to lunch or not just becomes normal at that point. You can move to higher level challenges like how do we get better quality user stories? What's our agreement for what's going to be defined a good user story? Or what are our rules of engagement regarding code reviews or QA automation? How much automation we do? So the sophistication, the maturity of those rules of engagement tends to increase as the team becomes more mature as well. So it's good to revisit these from time to time, and you'll find that there's new ideas come out about how do we work better together. Around building trust, the most effective tool that we've seen is to really create a team subculture. Have you ever been part of one of those teams where there's like a team identity, a secret handshake, or a song? Yeah.
Share an experience of sculpture.
For example, in my team.
Speak louder, please.
In my team, and also every day I invite you to the so share time. Snacks.
Yeah.
We invite us whatever for every Friday.
Having a routine of an every Friday breakfast, a small celebration to get together. Yes.
Why aren't you in my team?
Exactly. You want to create the team that everybody wants to be a part of. They're like, oh, I want to be on that team.
Also, Paul, we have some people here that they are the only ones in the country. You know, they have the teams in Costa Rica, on the States, and this team has like adopted. Can I say that?
Adopted. Yes.
Yeah, they adopted some of those people, so involving them in this culture. So it has been really great.
And sometimes you sometimes forget about don't apply the physical things like having a breakfast together, you can only do with the people in the same room, right? Well, maybe not, right? Everybody, that Friday morning routine can happen with every team, but you know it's happening and everybody talks about it. So having shared incentive systems, common celebrations, if there's like a big release and after the release there's a team lunch, have a team lunch in every location. Like everybody's doing, okay, Wednesday we're all going to team lunch. You're going to do your team lunch in Ohio, and I'm going to do my team lunch in Texas, and Felipe is going to do his team lunch in Medellin. But that's what we're going to do, right? We'll all do the same things. I think it's important. It can be important also to have team selected awards, where you're rewarding each other for some special contribution per month, per sprint, depending on what process you're using. But to have like an MVP, most valuable player award that rotates around, that is awarded by the team, and you'll find that begins, people start to think about what are the contributions of the people that are not in the room. It's really powerful to thank someone that you've never met face to face for some contribution, recognize something that they've done. So a team selected award is a very powerful way to do this, and really have as much lateral communication as you can. Encourage the teams to talk across to each other versus feeling like they have to go up to a manager or a scrum master or somebody to facilitate the communication. Try to make those connections happen across the team laterally. That's what I mean by the lateral communication. Some good things to help build that team culture is icebreakers. So having small talk, some examples that we've used to start a stand-up meeting with, go around the room and tell me something that made you happy in the last 24 hours. Or tell me something that you're looking forward to in the next day or two and why. It's very fast, but you begin to learn about people as a person, not just as the function in the box, right? They're real people with real passions and desires and interests. Yes, go ahead. Alexander, yes, please.
In our team, in every retrospective, at the end of the sprint,
yes,
we usually ask for something that every team member likes. For example, what animals you want to become someday,
okay,
or what kind of food do you like more, or something like that, in order to have the icebreakers.
Yes, that's a good one. Yeah,
before starting the perspective, because you are going to talk about sensitive stuff.
So create the common ground first, and then
is laughing before that. So.
Before you start saying, well, I really didn't like what you did. 2 pictures about me is another one of those. You can have people submit ahead of time 2 pictures and then tell something about a little story about themselves. There's another variation sort of in the shopping list here, and I can group these together in Who Am I game, where you submit a picture or a fact to somebody that remains anonymous. They mix it all up, and then the team has to try to match the baby picture to whose baby picture is this? Anybody? Or putting out some little known facts about yourself. So you tell a little story, that I practice martial arts, and then have the team figure out who that is. They go, oh, martial arts, that's Lorena. She must be the black belt, right?
Yeah, probably.
And we have a ton of fun with these. As you start like guessing, who do you think is that person, or pictures. Andrea Mena one time did send pictures of shoes. So she was leading a meeting, and we each took a picture of our feet, our shoes, and sent them in. And then she just brought the pictures up one at a time. Okay, whose shoes are these? Oh, I don't know. That's good. Is that Rodolfo? No, that's not Rodolfo. That's Andrea. No. But you can see, you can have a lot of fun with these kinds of things. So there's a lot of variations on who am I that you can do. There's also sort of an expanded version of that by using remote team building activities. It's not something you would want to do every day, but it can be fun. One of my favorites is a game called Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. The idea behind this game, and you can find it on the internet, the idea behind this game is each member of the team has a specialty, like you might be a specialty in wiring or a specialty in timers. These are little puzzles that come out. It's a bomb that gets presented that you have to disarm the bomb. Each person has certain information. Nobody has all of the information, right? So I might have the information that says if there are 2 red wires and 1 yellow wire, you cut the yellow wire, right? Felipe may have the information that says if there's a timer with a dial, you must disarm the timer before you cut any wires.
There's actually a game that does exactly that.
Yes.
They did a live streaming things where,
and it's a lot of fun because you have to coordinate. You're like, no, don't touch it, no. And so it's a lot of fun. We mentioned earlier the Slack channel for fun, just to share off-topic updates. Team scavenger hunts are a lot of fun too. Just do a scavenger hunt, take a picture of whatever it is. So you might have to take a picture of someone that you don't know showing their driving license, right? So you have to go find a stranger and get a selfie, right? Or find an insect and have a picture of an insect. So you can create a list of things that can be found in any location, and the teams can locally do the scavenger hunt and submit their pictures back to see who wins. So that's a lot of fun too. So some ideas on team building activities. Getting more into the mechanics of Scrum. This is a topic, an idea from Mike Cohn at Mountain Goat Software around the possibility of splitting sprint planning or release planning into 2 meetings instead of just 1. There's pros and cons for each that you can weigh. If your time zones are far apart, there's definitely advantage to consider here. But even if they're aligned, it can be painful to sit in a video conference for 4 hours, right? So there's advantage to splitting up, having local discussion, getting back together. So consider mixing it up. Look at the advantages and disadvantages based on the complexity. How much interaction do you need from the product owner? If it's relatively straightforward, then breaking it into 2 is very easy because the product owner can do a quick brain dump. Just here it is. The team's like, okay, I kind of get it. We'll go off and talk about it, and then later in the day or the next morning, get back together, compare notes, talk about potential blockers, whatever.
More efficient.
Yeah, it can be more efficient. It takes longer on the calendar, but it takes less time locally. Yeah. Daily stand-up. Rule of thumb: use video whenever possible. And make sure everyone knows who's talking. One of the interesting techniques I've heard described as low fidelity video. If you don't have video and you're just doing an audio conference, have pictures of the teammates in each location, and as they're talking, hold up the picture of that person. You'd be amazed if you're listening to a conference call and somebody holds up a picture, everyone's eyes will go right to the face. They'll go look right at the picture of that person. We're programmed to do that. But you can also have fun with it. You can turn it into a game where whoever has the pictures, they pull up the picture of who they think is talking, and you get points if you're right, and you get points taken away if you're wrong, right? So you can play a little game of it. You go, no, that is not Paul. We've also discovered you have to think, especially when you're using technology, about audio quality and separating into us and them by having a bunch of people in a room like we are right now and a bunch of people who are remote that they could probably hear me pretty well, but they can't hear the rest of the room. If you're the remote person with a headset and you're trying to listen to a room of 8 people, you've probably been there, right? It's really, really difficult. So in many cases, what we encourage teams to do is everybody use headsets. Even if you're in the same location, everybody gets on to the Skype channel or Hangout or whatever, GoToMeeting, using their own headset and microphone, and it becomes a great equalizer. You don't have to do that all the time, but if you find that you're having this problem, do it 1 or 2 times. The people that are normally sitting in the room that aren't having to be on the headsets, they'll start to get it. They'll be like, oh, okay, now I see, right? I understand. In retrospectives, I think these are best practices, even if you're doing them all in the same room, but especially to keep people engaged if you're distributed, to keep people's attention, mix it up, do different techniques, different types of retrospectives over time, not always following, we're going to do stop, start, continue. This sprint, next sprint, sprint 59, here we go, start, stop, continue. Yeah, I know the drill. I can give you my input, and then I can surf Facebook while I wait for the meeting to end. But use different techniques. It keeps people's minds sharp and creative. One thing we've also found for distributed teams, it's helpful to provide written feedback ahead of time, so people have an opportunity to think about it. But don't skip the meeting just because you think you've got the feedback. Oh, I got it in writing. We don't need to have the meeting. The discussion is still important. The relationship, the discussion, the collaboration is still the most important part. But writing down the feedback ahead of time can help to make sure everyone feels included. As a Scrum Master, you can sort of browse through there and see, oh, I didn't get any feedback from Sandra, right? So I'm going to ask, Sandra, did you have any feedback? I'm going to prompt, right, to make sure everyone is contributing, especially if you have a large team and you're just going around verbally talking about feedback. It's easy to lose track that there's 1 or 2 people that aren't saying anything, but they have great ideas. They just don't feel comfortable, right?
Don't be afraid.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be afraid. So in closing, you guys know how to reach me. No, those are the ideas and best practices that we've developed. We have really demonstrated to ourselves and to our customers that you can be nearly as effective distributed as you can be face-to-face. If you use some of these techniques, you build the right trust and leverage communication tools in a very effective way.
Great.
That's our computer having a question.
Is that
That's supposed to be.
maybe us running out of time? Is that the next meeting joining us?
Your next meeting is starting 2 hours ago.
Oh, 4 minutes.
Yeah, actually, in my opinion, I think that you have a coverage.
Yeah, we have
Good coverage, yes.
Because every ceremony has important steps, and I think that you did well. Yeah, when you said something about the headphones, sometimes if you are working with a product team, sometimes they join each other and they go to a room like this,
Yes.
and they usually use the spider.
Yes.
And you maybe missing a lot of echo. So I think that is a good recommendation for so many things that usually do that.
Yes.
Honestly, I don't have any other comment.
There's a message here.
It was a message there.
Oh, we have 2 licenses for keep talking and no one explodes.
They have like 11 manuals to deactivate the bomb that belong to that. We finished them out. So we have them. If anyone wants to play with
Awesome.
Present your pet during the Scrum meeting. That's a good one, Sylvia. Thank you.
There's a game called Prepping No Backlogs. It requires a printed manual that everyone has to read while they are deactivating. We have like 11 manuals printed out.
That you can maybe borrow and use for your meeting. Yeah, nice. Presenting your pet during the Scrum meeting.
Yeah.
Well, my pets like to jump in front of the camera when I'm having a daily
Yeah.
or one-on-one, and then there are cats all over the place. Well, there are only 2, but they like to.
But even with one, they can be all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, they introduce themselves. They don't need.
Or your children,
Yeah.
But there's a downside to the, I mean, I think it can happen with any of the activities you described. Like, for example, Camilo Velasco was in a team before where they had their pets going around and everything. And sometimes they were in really simple meetings that took 2 hours just because they were just having fun, sharing a lot of things. So it can go the other way.
You can
around
go
if
too
you
far
don't-
the other direction. Yeah, yeah.
True that.
Everything in moderation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay. Thank you for joining, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Nice presentation.
Hey, Pepe.
Thank you.
Maybe we can do a raffle of one guy in his Harley Davidson.
Oh, yeah.
We can participate.